just a bit crazy. And then, it's just that time where you're kind of figuring out what is going to go on. I think everyone, is in the same kind of deal, where, you've got the family, you got them feed, you got the mortgage, you got the whole show. What's going to happen?
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. We all know that one of the joys of travelling is experiencing new cultures and cuisines. Whether home or abroad, food has become the major reason for travelling. But the global pandemic put an end to all travel, home and abroad. What's happened to the regions reliant on tourism? What's happened to the restaurants that rely on tourists as their main clientele? Spencer Patrick is the owner of Taste Port Douglas and the co-owner of Harrison's, situated inside the Sheraton Resort. Spencer, how are you going?
I'm good, Anthony. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for joining us. You're way up there in warm North Queensland. It's a little bit colder down south in Canberra here, so I'm a bit envious of that. But you've definitely had some challenging times over the last couple of months for a region and restaurant that's reliant on tourists. Can you tell us about how the pandemic sort of affected you at the beginning when the restaurants got closed down?
Yeah, for sure. So, as you said, I've got Harrison's restaurant within the Sheraton there, and also I'm consultant over the whole F&B there too. So, when the call got made, I think was it the 24th, wasn't it? I think that was the D-Day, and we all got called in and said, that's it, restaurants closed, everything's done. So that was it. So yeah, so it's just a crazy time. It's just like one big kind of surreal bad dream, right?
Yeah. What was the impact? How many staff are we talking about, and what actually happened at that time?
Yeah, well, Harrison's has always been a small kitchen, so we had about five chefs, including me in there, and the Sheraton as a whole, I think there's about 30 chefs in there. So it's pretty big, and so yeah, we just had to close the restaurant straight away until further notice. So all the staff had to be stood down, and fridges unpacked and turned off, and yeah, just a bit crazy. And then it's just that time where you're kind of figuring out what is going to go on. I think everyone is in the same kind of deal. Where you got a family, you got them feed, you got the mortgage, you got the whole show. What's going to happen? And speaking to, myself and Paul Baker, we phoned around everyone and doing the kind of "Are you okay?" thing, and feeling about other people's perspectives and what they're going through, and are they going to be all right, etc. And as chefs, I think as a whole, we're pretty thick-skinned, and we can always see how to get that fight done and look ahead and see any kind of hole that can be reached and pop your head up.
What have you done in this period to adjust? Did you switch to any sort of different trading model to get income, or has the restaurant just been closed this whole time?
No, it's been closed this whole time up until last Thursday when we actually reopened it again. So there was no customers at the Sheraton at all. It's still on single figure occupancy. So there generally wasn't any trade. And I know a few places in Port Douglas that were doing the takeaway thing, but that everything is linked to tourism in some way around here, as you know, and so everyone's affected. So yeah, people were trying to do the takeaway thing, but even the locals didn't really have any money. So it's that kind of swimming against the tide kind of thing, and a big round of applause to people giving it a go. But it's very, very hard.
What's it feel like up in that region? As we sort of just mentioned, you're very reliant on tourists. What's the sentiment been there? And the future of that for the town?
The future, I think it's going to be strong when they open the borders, of course. But when it gets to September and the second school holidays and stuff, I think it's going to be okay. But right now, everyone's, they're opening up. They can put 20 people inside, the usual thing of their social distancing. And people are trying to work out how they're going to make it work, because the landlords are still wanting the same rent. The income's going to be less. It's a hard one. Suppliers aren't delivering. Well, they're delivering very regularly, if at all. And yeah, it's a hard one.
What's your feeling about the border closures at the moment?
My feeling is it's a tough one, because if they open up the borders, everything's going to be cool. But if there's a second wave and they've got to shut it all down again, that's going to be even worse, right?
Absolutely. So what do you think is the right move in that regard?
I think we should leave it for a month or so, see if any of these protests and all those gatherings have made a difference, and then take it from there. But I know most people around here want to get these borders open and get business running to the new normal. But I reckon we should just hold on tight and see. Because if there is a second wave and the borders get closed again, then that will completely ruin the second school holidays. It will completely ruin the Christmas break, the whole show. And then there'll be some serious trouble.
How have you felt during this period, with the whole industry kind of forced to shut down, and, many restaurants will be closing across the country? How have you personally been coping with this situation?
Yeah, well, I'm quite well connected. We've got lots of friends all over the country and the industry, and obviously abroad in London and stuff. And yeah, it's just hard, people who, especially the kind of fine dining, the people who are given all their passion and integrity to their thing, they're hurting, because the margin wasn't there anyway, and it's going to be even less there now when these places reopen. So, all that passion and all that emotion can be for nothing, and they're trying to get the places reopen, and I hope they do. I hope they're successful, but it's just hard, especially with the actual ones who own the business too.
That accent of yours doesn't sound very North Queenslander. You're from the UK originally. Have you had contact with people back home and what's going on back there? Have you had discussions with anyone in the industry?
Yeah, a few people who are in central London. My family as well, obviously, and it's very hard. There's lots of places closed. The Ledbury just announced they're closing until further notice, as well, as you know, which is insane, right? And it's these restaurants, because London restaurants are quite, apart from the big ones like the old Quags and stuff like that, they're quite small places, right? They've got quite small dining rooms, so the Gordon Ramsays and the Ledburys and stuff, they only hold that 40 to 50 covers, right? So social distancing cannot work. So all those kind of places will not reopen until further notice, until it is business as usual. Otherwise, it's just no point, right?
Yeah. How does a young kid from the UK end up in North Queensland? Can you tell us how you got into chefing and how you ended up in Port Douglas?
Yeah, the story. Wow. So yeah, I've been cooking for about 35 years now. God, I don't know where that's gone. But I started off in Middle England, working in Relais chateaus and stuff. And I was about 17, like Raymond Blanc's and the Hampton Halls. There's Michelin star places which are beautiful, all produce and poacher driven, which was absolutely fantastic. And then I used to nip down to London, do stages at Nico's and all that sort of stuff. Remember Nico at 90 back then, and all those kind of places. And then I just cold called Marco when he just kind of opened the restaurant Marco Pierre White at the Hyde Park Hotel. And I was a kind of chef de partie, junior sous chef kind of level then. And so, young, a bit cocky kind of thing. And he says, yeah, I'll give you a job. And there's me being very private school looking and walking to a kitchen full of skinheads with tattoos and yeah, I had to keep my head down quite a bit. But yeah, that was a good, hard 3 years working there. They got 3 Michelin days when he had 2 stars. It was just straight after Harvey's. And so he had 2 stars and then moved on to 3. So I was there during that time. I'm not saying it was because of me, but, being part of that was absolutely amazing. And, it was the youngest brigade in the world. We got lots of attention and we all felt very proud and it was very cool, but very hard. And then I kind of progressed up the ladder, and then it was when Marco was taking over London, and he had Quavardis, he had Criterion, Mirabelle, and all that kind of stuff. Do you remember those restaurants?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I and the Cafe Royal Grill Room, which is an amazing dining room, and he asked me to, or pretty told me to go in and run it. So yeah, he goes, "This is yours. You run it. It's your show." I was like, "Okay." I was like, Jesus. So I was 25 at the time, and so I'd been working under the man for a while. We used to call him the boss, and then so I came up with this menu. And kind of evolved my cuisine, as it were. I was pretty young back then, but I thought I had my kind of style, but it was basically a mixture between the country manoir cooking and Marco and stuff. Do you know what I mean? So there's lots of assiettes and lots of foie gras and lots of truffles and pump and salmon in the restaurant with duck à la presse and crêpes Suzette standing at the table. So I kind of brought back all that kind of stuff, which is really, really cool. And the actual dining room was amazing. It was a red velvet kind of room with catarids and silver and gold everywhere. Oscar Wilde held court there when he was alive. And yeah, it was one of those. And there's even a dome put over the top of it, concrete dome put over the top of the restaurant. So it's protected during the World Wars and stuff. Just amazing. So that was really cool, and I got a Michelin star there when Michelin stars really did count. Remember that, and that was great. So it's great for me, great for the team, all that kind of stuff. And then the year after, we got one Michelin star again, but we got the four knives and forks, the red ones. I mean, we were on the way to getting 2, which was great. And then the restaurant got closed down because it wasn't making enough money by Marco's business partner. So we're like, fuck. And then after that, I went to be head chef at the Mirabelle for just over a year and a half. And then I was head chef at Quavardis. And then I kind of, which is all cool, Michelin stars in each one. And then I kind of left and went to Cambridge and opened up a little place there. But I was a bit bored of England, so I got in touch with an agency, and I wanted to do a bit of travelling. Didn't have a girlfriend, just a suitcase and some knives and a bit of cash in the back pocket. And there was 3 jobs available. There's one in Moscow, which didn't really fit right. There was Soho House in New York, which was just about to open on the meatpacking district, and there was the Phoenix, which is Raymond Capaldi's place.
Yeah.
And so I spoke to Curtis, who worked for me for about 3. Curtis Stone worked for me for about 3 years, and Shannon. I worked with Shannon Bennett at Marco's as well, so we all kind of knew each other. I had connections in Melbourne. And they said, Raymond, we're going to put a good word in for you. And so I got the job there. And I remember landing in Melbourne, I think it was the 5th of August. And me being a naive Englishman, I thought it was going to be like a larger Byron Bay. There'll be blondes with surfboards in the airport, suntans. And when I arrived, it was cold in London. I was like, oh, my God. Awful. And then Curtis's mum put me up just near the airport, and so I'd borrowed Curtis's grandfather's old Subaru car to drive into the city. Bear in mind, in London, I used to drive a Porsche and all that kind of stuff, and then it's very nice being looked after, but it's all different. I kept getting lost in central Melbourne and not taking those hook turns right, all that kind of stuff, and the car kept on breaking down. I was like, oh my God, it's so stressful. And and then Raymond Capaldi as well. I was his head chef for a while, and he's a very, very dear friend of mine now. And then I met my wife to be, Raina, who you've met before, Anthony.
Yeah.
And we decided to pack some bags and travel around Australia. And we travelled clockwise and just followed the sun and just found, out how amazing your country is here. And you're good being a chef, obviously. You see where all the vineyards are and all the produce comes from seasonally, etc. And just amazing. And we got to, we stayed in Margaret River for a few months, Broome for a few months, and stopped in between, obviously, and just camped and had a great time playing Uno and drinking wine. and then we ended up in Port Douglas, and Raina found herself pregnant, and we were sitting outside a cafe, and I said, "Hey, do you like it here?" And she goes, "I do." I said, "Do you want to live here?" She goes, "I do." So that's it. And so we set up shop, and our firstborn, we found out it was going to be a boy beforehand, and we said, "Okay, let's call him Harrison." And we opened up Harrison's, and that's it. Raina was pregnant on the floor. I was working at the back, and I was doing foie gras with with peeled grapes and all that kind of stuff, and crepes Suzettes and chateaubriands and all that kind of jazz. And yeah, it was great. We got a hat, and we which were pretty unexpected. It was just a real little rundown place, but we made it home. And then the rest is history. We opened up another Harrison's, as you know, down the road, and we had Bucci in Brisbane. And now we're at the Sheraton, which is a nice home, a bit more classy.
What is it about North Queensland that makes it such a good place to have a restaurant?
I don't think it's a good place to have a restaurant. I think it's a bloody nightmare because it's so seasonal. I mean, all the time, like, oh my God, what are we doing? It's just, I like it being from England. It's constantly warm. I mean, we get cold now when it goes down to 18 degrees. It's unique. I've always loved wildlife and stuff, being as a kid, and it is just an amazing place. Lots of community here as well, which I love. We're very fortunate. We live opposite the ocean. We've got the river at the back, and we've got 3 lovely kids. And I think it's I don't think I know it's about the kids now. It's about their future. It's about making memories and stuff. And it's just good,
Now, you also own Taste Port Douglas, which celebrates everything in the region and has the community celebrating with you. What's been the impact on that? Because big events can't happen at the moment. And what's the future of that looking like?
Yeah, so we put it on hold for 2 years, and funny enough, it was supposed to go ahead this August as a relaunch, and we were even going to give you earrings if you wanted to come again and be a part. And we'd got it all sorted. We had the talent list all ready to go. It's going to be based at the actual Sheraton, and it's basically upping the game of the F&B of Sheraton nationwide, and it's going to be absolutely fantastic. But we are going to be doing it again next year, 21 in August. So we have 20 chefs on the list, and all using all the local produce and lots of stuff. It's pretty cool. I love it. It's really kind of down to earth festival. As you know, it's all about the community and putting Port Douglas and the region on the pedestal it deserves. And it's good. I mean, most people, when they come up here or they think about tropical north, they think about mangoes and mud crabs and coral trout, right? But there's so much more up here. There's a huge food bowl up in the tablelands, and it's all very seasonal. It's great. It's unique. It's awesome.
What's some of the local produce that you get excited about that perhaps people wouldn't expect?
I like it already. Around Christmas time, all the stone fruits come in, all the different varieties of sapotes and all that kind of stuff, which is really cool. Really, really good for you as well. All that kind of stuff is all ripened by the sun, 'cause it's so warm and so kind of humid. You can just tell all the the juiciness and the sweetness out of everything. And then we move into the colder times when all the citrus is available now, which I absolutely love. All the pomelos and all the all the finger limes and all that kind of stuff. So all through the 12 months, something new is popping up. I mean, I always go to a market, which is a true farmers market in Mossman. It's only small, but you always find new things every time you're there. What's this? And I'll taste it and blah blah. And then, so it's quite hard to do an actual whole a la carte menu which will survive for 6 weeks or so from some produce. But it's really good to bring it back, inspire the kids in the kitchen, and create specials and all that kind of stuff.
How much has your cooking and cuisine changed since living up there?
Quite a lot. I've been through a couple of stages up here. As I said, when I first came up here, I did the classic French, which was pretty heavy, but that's all I knew. Do you know what I mean? And you can't pretend to really completely change yourself when that's all you've done. And so, I was trying to use local produce as much as possible, but I just didn't understand it. But then, when I had time, I'd go to the markets and speak to people and stuff. And then I started to get into indigenous stuff. Nowhere near as much as Jock, but the menu did become mainly indigenous and using all the breadfruits and wrapping things in paper bark and using all the spices and the herbs and stuff which people don't know about. And I was getting really kind of excited about that because it's new to me, learning something refreshing. And then I thought, this is cool, but is this really me? Am I just excited because it's a fad? And it was a fad for me. So now I've found what my cuisine is, and it's now it's kind of stuff that brings me memories from the UK, but inspired also by using local ingredients. Do you know what I mean? So I can change things up a little bit. And then it kind of makes sense because all your food, especially when you get older like me, I think it's got to make sense. Otherwise, it's not worth it. It's got to have a story, right?
Yeah. What still excites you about restaurants and hospitality?
Oh, what excites me? Big question, really. I think over the last few years, my excitement has been diluted a bit with restaurants because I know how much the old days when you used to go to Le Gavroche in London and have a long lunch, and it's just amazing. And the head chef would come out, and you got 3 waiters to your table and all that kind of stuff, and flambéing. To me, that is dining. I love that as an experience, and every single time you lunch or dine like that, you will never forget that experience, right? But I think in recent years it has been diluted a bit, and that pure electric classic experience is gone a little bit, or a lot. There's obviously the margins are not there anymore, so people are careful about staffing. Front of house as well. So I don't think it's as grand as it used to be. I know people are going to change with the times. I like going to places now which are busy and funky, and to me, it's about the overall complete package of I think so. Me and the family were in Sydney before all this happened. We went to Mr. Wong's, and we thought that was amazing. So that encompasses everything. You could have been in Shanghai, right? The kids loved it. I loved it. The food is what it is, but it encompasses what the whole restaurant, the whole story is about. But a real huge theme. To me, the best restaurant is my home here. I just love cooking great food, putting it in the middle of the table, opening a nice bottle of wine, and enjoying and bringing a restaurant into my home. I love doing that now.
Well, maybe you can invite some of us to your home for that experience.
Yeah, and I think it's great for the kids as well because we every single Saturday we have a brunch, and we just fill the table full of great stuff we got from the market, fresh avocados, and all that kind of stuff, and fruit salads and great things, and then we decide which country we're going to go to on the Sunday. and I go, let's go to let's go to France, say, and then I will do confit duck. I'll make some parfait to begin with. We'll have tatane for dessert and stuff like that, and we'll go to bloody Dan Murphy's and get wines that match, and we sit there for 4 hours and have a great time. We don't have to drive. It's phenomenal, and to get that kind of experience and the stuff in a restaurant and it's quite hard these days, I think.
Do you think what you'll do with the restaurant will change as we move forward because of this situation?
It's a funny one because now I'm in the hotel. I'm quite fortunate it's in a bit of a bubble, if you know what I mean. So we've got some serious rules to stick to. I mean, we just started have to wear masks and gloves. Everyone front and back has got to wear them, which is quite an obtrusive for the guests, and they don't really get it, but it's just the way. As the hotel gets busier, we'll get busier, and we get lots of support from in town as well, and around the area. But I don't know, will it change? I hope not. I really hope not. I always see the brighter things, and I think it's going to be okay.
Do you think you've changed? Has there been positives to come out of this sort of setback?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we had the kids at home, all 3 kids, and dog and 2 cats. I remember in the middle of it all, I went and I had a meeting in town for about 3 hours, and that's the longest I was away from the family for a while. So, we coped with it very, very well. We're very lucky, as I said before. Taking the dog for a walk all the time on the beach opposite, and it's been great. And what I think we've taken from it, what I know we've taken from it, is life's too short, and you got to stick close to your family, right? And create those memories. And work is great, but family comes first.
Well, when the borders do open again, and you have a big influx of people up there again, how are you going to feel? Are you going to be cautious and nervous about it, or do you think it'll be a real time to celebrate?
Bit of both, really. Bit of both. I think to see the town flourish again, and seeing those big dive boats going out and everyone bouncing back, I think that's a true time to celebrate. But then, just got to be careful, right, and make sure that all these rules are adhered to, and just see what happens and keep those fingers crossed.
When the borders are open and you get to travel again, where are you going to go, and what would be your ideal restaurant experience outside of Queensland?
Ooh, tricky one. Very, very tricky. Well, firstly, we need to go down to Melbourne to see all the families, all Rayner's families down there, brothers and young kids and stuff. Restaurant experience. Wow. You know what? I'm going to go down to and see Donovan cook at Rhine.
Ah, sounds nice.
because I have never been to his place, and he is he's a great man, and we're from the same stables, and it would be good. That's where I'd like to go.
Well, it's recorded now, so you're going to have to. He'll probably hold you to that now. You mentioned a little earlier your love of the wildlife, and you're surrounded by some serious wildlife up there in North Queensland. Is there a wildlife story that you tell to scare the relatives and friends back home about Australian wildlife at all?
I'll tell you, on my next door neighbour is called Juan Walker, and he's part of the Walker family, and they're the landowners basically, and he's really, really, really cool. And I've known him for years, and where the ocean is in front of us, we've got mangroves to the right. And we go out. He's got these tours as well called walkabout tours, and he does very, very well. And he by the way, he's struggling, so he needs to get some tours going. But he makes his own spears, and he takes tours out there. I've done a bit of TV with it as well, and it is really cool. And what we do in the shallows, we practice throwing these spears, and then we walk out a little bit. We don't go deeper than our knees, and we try and get some rays and some blue swimmer crabs. And then Juan's got this thing where he catches a ray, and he always carries a backpack with him. Puts the backpack the ray in the backpack. But before he does that, he cuts the barb off. So the barb's probably about 2-3 centimeters on these rays, and then he shoves the barb through his t-shirt to get any of the poison off, and then he just shoves it in his pocket. And then so he's got a ray in there, and then we go into the mangroves. The mangroves are absolutely amazing. It's like the time forgotten, and he talks about all these stories where back in the day the indigenous would send their kids into the mangroves to get all tangled up and have a bit of rough and tumble, and that will tire them out, right? Because it's really quite treacherous in there. And then we'd get in there and we go mangrove hunting. We'd get crabs, mud crabs, and we'd go for these mussels as well. I call them mangrove mussels. And I think you were there at Taste Port Douglas, where we had the opening at the Sheraton, and we had those fires. Were you there that year?
I was, yeah. I was just reminiscing when you were talking about it.
Yeah, and when Darren and Mark were there, and we had all those mangrove mussels there, which the local kids picked for us, and they're absolutely beautiful. I don't know whether you remember, they're really thick shelled. You pop them open on the fire, and they're just so pure, and they're actually buried deep in the mangroves. So you'd think they'd be really kind of gritty, soily, and you'd have to purge them, but you don't. They're absolutely beautiful, and then we go mud crab hunting, and Juan even talks to the nature when he's walking through in his language. It's absolutely amazing. And then we get winkles and that kind of stuff. He puts everything in his backpack, and then we go back and we have a bit of a cook-up. So there's also one of his family members who joins us, and I call him the fire starter, and he can start a fire without a lighter within like 2 minutes. It's just bloody amazing. And so then we get paper bark and all that kind of stuff, and we put on the mud crabs first, males only, obviously, and then we stuck it all up with the mussels and all that sort of thing, and then we eat, and then the ray, we cook the ray. That kind of gets steamed in a banana leaf, but we just use the wings. And what he uses to cut the wings off is the barb. So the barb is serrated, right? So he actually cuts the meat. He cuts the wing off the ray with that. It's just ingenious. That's ingenious. And he brings along this pickled chili kind of vinegar, which is Nana makes, and we dress everything at that, and we eat. But I always say, you asked about the dangerous things. But the dangerous things are the crocodiles. There's lots of crocodiles here now, more so than there used to be. But there's an island called Snapper Island, which you can see on the left-hand side of our beach. And it looks like a peninsula, but it's not. It's actually a detached island. And it looks like a crocodile, right, in the water with his snout up and his rounded head. And they call it Snapper Island. And this is supposed to produce a spirit which protects the indigenous from crocodiles. And they kind of looks over their shoulder and makes sure they're okay. So, there's all these dream time stories as well, and the best time to look at mud crabs in the full moon, because they go into the mangroves looking for all the ladies and all this stuff. But it is truly magical up here.
Mate, I can see why you're living up there. It's extraordinary. And I can't wait to get up there again for another Taste Port Douglas. It's such a beautiful place on the planet. Mate, good luck. Hopefully they open the borders soon and you get a big influx of people enjoying your beautiful cooking again. And thanks for joining us.
Lovely to talk to you. Thanks. Bye-bye.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we share the stories of Australia's hospo community, suppliers and producers in search of hope during this pandemic. Special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Follow us on Instagram at Deep in the Weeds Podcast, or email us at podcast@deepintheweeds.com.au. Stay safe and be well.